Welcome everybody to Fatherly Fan, and we watched She-Hulk this week, episode 2. We'll tell you all about it in just a second. But first,
Chris, I want to know,
eh?
what did Jennifer Walters call her cousin after he based her training program on evidence-based practices and peer-reviewed research?
I don't know. What did he call her cousin after finding some evidence-based practices and peer-reviewed research?
She called him the credible Hulk.
Ah!
Oh.
Yeah, I did. So that bad dad joke brought to you by Matt Barham today. I'm Chris Matthews. This is Matt Barham. This is Fatherly Phantom. If you haven't joined us before, we're two dads. We're not film critics or anything like that. We're two dads that are talking all about all the stuff that we love. We love cinema. We love shows. So we thought we'd produce a little show here and share all that information and stuff that we've learned about our shows and things like that with all of you, our viewing audience here.
Yes,
So
sir.
how you doing today, Matt?
I'm doing great, man. I'm really excited for this episode. We've got so much to talk about,
Yeah.
even outside of the episode itself. So let's get going.
Let's get going. Okay, we're going to talk about She-Hulk, episode 2 of She-Hulk Attorney at Law. Boom, boom, boom. All right, so we're each going to review. How it's going to go is we're each going to review this episode. So Matt's going to go first. I'm going to go second. And then we got a little bit of information about different stuff, like different subjects and whatnot. We like to kind of bring stuff into the conversation if we can to kind of heighten your experience if that's anything. So we'll be doing that. But first of all, if you haven't already, make sure that you subscribe to our channel. Click on the notifications, like this episode, subscribe, and give us a boost here because that would really make a difference for us. We really appreciate your support and everything else. Yeah, you don't have to spend a dime. You just have to subscribe to us to help out the channel, okay?
Or smash that like button.
Smash it! Hulk, smash the like button if you
On
can,
theme
okay?
today.
Yeah, there you go. So go ahead and do that, please. It would be very much appreciated from me and Matt. We love you guys. We love our audience. We want to build this community up as much as we can. So let's go ahead and go into the review. So, Matt, what did you think of this episode this week?
Well, I'm going to assume everybody out there that's watching has seen it. If you haven't, I'm not going to spoil anything for you, just give you my opinion of what's happened. I enjoyed the episode. I enjoyed last week's episode too. And so far, the show has been the definition of entertainment, right? It's fun. It pokes fun at itself, and it's classic Marvel right out of the gate. So I really like that. Today's standouts, or this episode's standouts for me, was the guy that plays Morris Walters, who's Jennifer's dad. Whenever she goes home,
my gosh!
The
Did
actor's
you recognize
name
him right
is-
away?
What?
Did you recognize him right away?
I
The actor
lost
who
you there.
plays
What'd
the
you
dad?
say?
Did you recognize that actor right away?
No, so his name is
Oh,
Mark Lynn Baker, and
yes,
he's from Perfect Strangers, but I never watched
he
Perfect Strangers.
is.
Did you
Oh
watch
my
that
god!
show?
Oh yeah, as soon as he came on the screen, I was like, that guy looks so familiar. What is he from? And I was like, oh, he's from Perfect Strange. I watched that show a lot as a kid. I grew up 80s kid, early 90s kid. That show was on every week.
Yeah.
And so I was very familiar with this guy. Definitely a standout. So go ahead with more of your review, Matt. Sorry.
No, I love it
there.
because I was not, I mean, I was aware of the
I
show,
was so
but
excited.
I never watched it. I was more familiar with its
Great
spinoff,
show.
which, if you don't know, was Family Matters. Harriet Winslow is one of the side characters in Perfect Strangers, and then eventually went on to be one of the main characters of Family Matters, of course, with Steve Urkel and the rest. And I watched that show a ton. So yeah, this episode had a little bit of that sort of sitcom-y feel whenever they get to the family portions of it. And I just loved, I mean, the guy was such a sweetheart in the episode. I watched an interview with him at like sort of a red carpet interview, and same thing. I mean, he was the dad that you hope that he is in real life. And he even brought his daughter into the interview and was like, "Hey, Jennifer Walters is my daughter on She-Hulk, but here's my real one, and she's happy to be here today."
Nice.
And it was awesome. But the fact that he can't get in a word is
Yeah.
something that I can relate to.
Relatable. Yeah.
Yeah, instantly. I was like, oh, that's
Not
exactly what
gonna
it
get a
feels like
word
to be a
in,
dad.
edgewise. It does. Very
Yeah.
much so.
Yeah, so I mean, it was just a great performance and one of the highlights for me this week. I also like that, just like I have done, I've literally asked the same questions he did about Hawkeye. Like, what does he
Hmm.
go around and collect
Yeah.
these arrows?
Does it
it's
pick
it's
up these
dangerous just to
arrows?
have explosive
That was the
incendiary
best.
arrows laying
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah. Right.
But
Who's Hawkeye guy?
yeah. But also, Chris, I wanted to bring this up. I'm sure that you caught some of these, but for those audience members that didn't, man, this show is packed to the hilt with Easter eggs, and they're blink and you miss them type of references.
Oh, yeah. So I probably didn't get all of them either. So
Yeah.
what'd you catch on this one?
So three of them that I saw basically because of research later was whenever she is looking for another job and she's got the article pulled up. I have no idea what they were referencing in that article about being a mascot for a small Swiss town. Um,
Yeah, I like that.
yeah, that seems like completely random. But off to the
Yeah.
side, there's other articles referenced there, and one of them says, "Man fights with metal claws in bar brawl." Obviously, a
Mm-hmm.
Wolverine reference. And
Mm-hmm.
then, actually,
There you
kind of
go.
my favorite. I mean, I was really pleased that they put a Wolverine reference in there because, like you were talking about last week, there's probably stuff in there alluding to the X-File or the X-Men, not
X-Men.
the
Yeah.
X-Files.
Though that would be really cool if we got the X-Files in here too.
That would
Do
just
do
blow
do
everybody's
do
minds.
do do.
Yeah, out of
Like
left
what
field,
the?
Scully
How
and
did they
Mulder
even?
show up. Yeah, but
The amount of contracts you'd have to sign to get Fox to give over that would be mind-boggling.
oh
So
yeah. Well, whenever we see Morris start smoking a cigarette and being really aloof, then we'll know that they're alluding to X
yeah,
Files coming in. Yeah.
it's
um,
coming.
but
It's
also, one of
coming.
the articles off to the side says why there is a giant statue of a man sticking out of the ocean. Which yeah, is a very pertinent question
Eternals.
from yeah,
Yeah.
the ending of Eternals.
That's the
And
question
so
I had too after I watched that movie. So, like,
yeah, yeah,
are
it's
they
it's
going to
immediately
reference this
what
at
you
all?
ask. Like, isn't
Yeah.
anybody else going to notice what in the world happened here? So,
Crazy.
and of course, there is another QR code up at the top of the article title, which if you
Mhm.
freeze frame, or I don't know how you actually use the thing. But if you happen to find a way to scan the QR code, it'll take you to yet another free comic of She-Hulk. It's She-Hulk #1, which was originally released in 2004. So I really
Oh,
like
so it
that.
was the newer run.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, okay. So yeah, not having read any She-Hulk episode or comics myself, I have enjoyed the free ones that they've been
Yeah.
releasing week to week. I think that's a really cool addition to the show. Uh,
Man, so even if you don't like this show, it's giving you free comic books, people. So,
yeah, well, and I
it's
mean
awesome.
that's
Hope they
good.
keep it
To
up.
me, that's great because like I don't have any frame of reference here, so some of
Hmm.
this stuff is probably just going right over my head. And the show is giving me a little bit of way to engage in this extra stuff. So I love that. I think that's a pretty cool aspect to the show.
That is
I
awesome.
did have a question though, and
Sure.
I mean
Hit it.
it's not anything that it was a downgrade for the episode for me, but what do you think is going on with the Hulk, man? I mean, he's in that
Oh,
ship, that Sakaar
yeah.
ship
The
cruising out into
Sicarian
space.
class. Oh, yeah. So for me, I kind of think this is a prelude to World War Hulk. Where he, because
Hmm,
basically what they did is they kind of used this a little bit in the Thor Ragnarok movie where he was,
right.
in there in the arena being a gladiator style Hulk. But essentially, in the comic books, he gets he gets banned from Earth and everything. Like the Avengers are like, sorry, Bruce, you're too dangerous. We have to get rid
Yeah.
of you. So they shoot him off into space. He ends up on Sakaar, the world of Sakaar, and becomes a gladiator and everything, and actually forms an uprising, takes over the planet, and comes back to Earth, and basically causes a war, and like wreaking havoc on the planet because of what they did to him. And this sets up that, you know, the Hulk actually has a love interest on Sakaar as well, so he eventually has a son as well on there. So there's the son of Hulk as well.
Yeah.
So they might be going in that direction. I don't know exactly. Since they kind of like used some of these elements in Thor Ragnarok, I'm not exactly sure it's going to be the exact same story, but maybe you're going to have something similar to where he gets together with the people on Sakaar, the one that we see in the MCU, and forms his little group and everything. But I don't see this Hulk. I don't see this smart Hulk making the same decisions or wanting to come back to Earth to take it over or cause havoc and things like that. So it'll be really interesting to see where they go. We're off the charts right now compared to the comics, but real cool to see that, you know, they are actually. I thought they were gonna just show that spaceship in the first episode and not come back to it at all. I thought it was just gonna be something that was just, oh yeah, maybe this is. I'll have to find out later. But for right now, we need to focus on you, Jennifer. And they didn't do that. So we're seeing a little bit more. Maybe it's going to set up something for a future movie, you know. And Marvel right now does not own the rights for a Hulk movie. They still don't own the rights. This is why you haven't seen a solo movie for the Hulk. This is why we're seeing She-Hulk and him on the what was it called, the small screen. And which is, I don't know how small it is nowadays, because like we all have huge TVs and whatnot, but that's neither here nor there. So I don't know exactly where they're going with this, but it's probably not a standalone Hulk movie. We might be seeing this in Phase 5. This is the last show for Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe as it is. So it'll be real interesting to see. Who knows?
It seems like the schedule's completely packed, so I really don't know where they're going with that at all. And that was one of my qualms that I'll say, kind of leading into my qualm with the episode.
Yeah.
Um,
Maybe Guardians of the
so
Galaxy? Do you think that might be
possibly, yeah, might be Guardians of the Galaxy, but I think that the show in just these 2 episodes has set up like these little things. I'm sure they'll come back later, but because of the short length of the episode, we kind of just get stuff dropped. Like what is her name? Titania. She just bursts in for like 15 seconds and then she's in custody. And I'm sure she'll come back later, but it just kind of seems like, okay, well, that's dropped and now we're on to Blonsky and all that stuff. And I feel like it's almost a push for cameo week to week,
maybe,
versus a storyline that's kind of like following a linear pathway. But it's a little thing. Mostly I just have a problem with how long these episodes are.
And for me, like, and again, I have no problem with the length of these episodes. And what the audience needs to realize that this show is being billed as a comedy. And so if you think about any of the other sitcoms that we have out there, how long are those episodes? They're usually about 25 minutes or 30 minutes long. So it's definitely taking from the formula of a comedy. And so it's a little bit different. And I know, and I'll talk about this in a little bit, about, fan reception and reception of viewers across the board, and how people are viewing this show. But it is a little bit different, and it's a little bit jarring for people because it's not what we've gotten before. It's a different type of show. It's a comedy from Marvel, so it's a little bit kooky here and there. So I really like that. I enjoy the ride so far. I think it's a lot of fun. So I personally don't have a lot of problems with it. There's plenty of episodes ahead of us that we're going to get to talk about, and that will enhance this story, and we'll definitely get back to Titania. I've seen some stuff about that, so hold your horses, buddy. They're coming. So it's okay. We have to agree to disagree on the time of this. I think it's fun. It's just enough time to get into it and have fun and be ready for the next episode, because I'm really excited for the next episode.
Yeah, I keep I basically keep waiting. Like you said, it's sort of based around a sitcom format.
Yeah.
Um, and I keep waiting for the commercial break. Like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. Oh
Oh
no, that's
man.
the end of the episode.
Yeah. Oh, I wish we did.
Not time to
Oh,
go get a drink.
yeah.
Huh?
It would be so cool if we did have like a commercial break in there. And again, I'll bring this up in a little bit here on my little segment of the things I researched. But there would be some really cool stuff that they could do with advertising and commercials with the show specifically. So, all right,
Yeah.
go ahead and lead us on to more your review there.
Yeah, so those are pretty much the highlights for me. And like I
Yeah.
said, one tiny little qualm. So overall, I think I'm going to give this episode a rating of 7 out of 10. If we can't do the
7 out of
half points,
10.
I'd really like to go a little bit above. I'm going to go an 8 out of 10. You know what? Because I
Oh,
really
okay.
did like Morris Walters,
Oh
and
man. Yeah.
I I enjoyed Tim Roth coming back as Abomination too. I thought his little thing about the haikus. Oh, and the little
And
nod
his
that they
7
gave.
soulmates.
Well, I didn't know what that was about, but
I
the
didn't
little
either.
nod that they gave to Hulk being an entirely different person now since he's fought Blonsky before,
Yeah.
and then She-Hulk turns right to the camera and gives a forced
Yeah.
laugh.
Wink, wink.
Obviously, they're
Yeah.
referencing Edward Norton.
Yeah, a lot of that in this. So that was really cool. So we got an 8 out of 10. It was a 7, but he has changed his mind. Uh,
Yeah,
so thinking about it a little bit more, 8 out of 10 from Matt. If you were going to give this a letter grade, what letter grade would you give it, Mr. Matt
B for
Pie?
me. It's been a B.
Positive B.
The show's been a B for me.
Yeah,
But
and I think that is exactly what it needs to be, especially as a comedy sitcom sideshow for Marvel.
yeah,
And I'm enjoying every minute of it. So let's go into my review of this. Yes, so it's She-Hulk Attorney at Law, episode 2, Superhuman Law. I don't know if we said the title of the episode, but it was called Superhuman Law, directed by Kate Coro, the one that did the first episode as well, written by Jessica Gao. She's the one that we talked about last week. And like you said, like I was absolutely floored when we actually got to see Morris Walters, her father, and I love this guy's performance. And this is fatherly fandom, so we as dads can kind of relate to these characters as much as possible. But the gentleness
mm,
and the niceness, and I loved when he took Jennifer off to the side and was like, "How you doing, kid?" And kind of like had that moment to let her speak her mind and let her dad know exactly how she was feeling. I thought that was a beautiful moment. I love the stinger at the end. Did you watch the stinger at the end of the episode,
I
Jennifer?
did.
There. Yeah,
Yeah.
where she was doing a lot of projects for her dad, bringing in water. Like, this seems like an excessive amount of water. I thought that
Yeah.
was absolutely perfect. So in this episode, Jennifer Walters loses her job because she did the right thing. And typical in the superheroes journey, they always come to a struggle with work-life balance and everything else, and everything seems to go wrong for them in their personal lives when they do the right thing as a superhero. I mean, we've seen this with Spider-Man. Spider-Man No Way Home kind of caught on that. Like, he had to make the ultimate sacrifice. Everybody lost. Doesn't know who he is now because he saved the world and whatnot. Now he's a broke kid trying to make it in New York, trying to do the right thing. Same thing with this. Jennifer Walters stepped up and was a superhero for a moment, and what happens? She loses her job because they filed that. What was it called? I forget. But basically, the jury couldn't be unbiased because she just
Oh,
saved them.
yeah.
And so, they filed it as a mistrial. Sorry, I'm not a legal person here. You probably can tell. But they filed it as a mistrial, so because the jury couldn't give an unbiased, verdict over this because, Jennifer Walters just saved their lives. And she was like, what am I supposed to do? Just not save these people and let them get crushed underneath some seats and whatnot? So she did the right thing. She lost her job, and she goes through a process where she's looking for other jobs and whatnot, and then she gets a job opportunity with the person that she was actually against in court and whatnot. So they want to create this superhuman law firm and everything, the superhuman law firm that they're going to create and whatnot. And they want her, but they want She-Hulk. And this is where She-Hulk gets her name. We see that in the episode when they have an interview with a guy on the street that was in the courtroom, and he's like, "What would you think of it?" It's like She-Hulk, and like, "Oh yeah." Kind of points at the camera and he's like, "God, I hope that doesn't stick." But as we all know, that's the title of the show, so it's obviously gonna stick. So she gets involved with that, and the first person they want her to represent is Emil, the Abomination, Tim Roth, and everything, coming back from the original movie and whatnot. And I love that they're incorporating all this stuff. We've seen William Hurt come back as Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, General Ross. He came back in Avengers as well. So, and he was also in Black Widow, the standalone movie. So it's good that they're incorporating more with this. And so she's reluctant to take the case, and then she talks to Bruce about it. And he's like, "Oh yeah, totally fine. He sent me a haiku before, and he was totally nice about it. So if that's what you got to do, you're good to go." That's when we see him leave off in the spaceship, and we're like, "Oh, what's that about?" And so she gets to go meet Tim Roth over there in jail. Which, at this point, Matt, I don't know if you were thinking about it, but whenever I see Shang-Chi, I was sitting there because we saw the Abomination in that movie, and he was fighting with Wong in there. So I was like, and at the end, they seem like buddies, and they circle ring out to some other place. And so for me, I was like, well, so I was thinking about the timeline and everything. It was really confusing for me because I was like, oh, so he's still in prison, so that actually took place afterwards or before. But we find out.
Yeah, I'm glad that they addressed that at the end with the news story.
I was absolutely confused about that until they luckily they did clarify that in the episode as well, that he broke out of prison. But it's like, okay, what is Wong doing with the Abomination? Or is now he a fugitive of the law too because he broke the Abomination out of jail and whatnot? Where are they going to go with this? So it was.
I've got one guess for next week's guest star.
Yeah, I do too. So if you have a guess, guys, comment below. Let us know what you think is coming up in this episode, the next episode, episode 3 of She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. But yeah, so that whole interview too with Tim Roth and her was awesome. I absolutely loved that. I loved how quirky he was in that. And he was like, "I'm a changed man." And yeah, like I said, these 7 soulmates that he's been pen pals with, I was like, oh, that's very interesting. It's like you have a little groupies out there.
Is that a reference to something?
I don't know. I have no idea. I couldn't find anything on it. I was like, huh. But then I was thinking, what is that, the 7 rings or something, or a reference to that? I was like, I didn't know. I don't know. But hey, guys, if you know,
pretty random.
It was super random. Guys, if you know what the 7 soulmates was about, if that's a reference to anything in the comic books, please leave a comment below and let us know what you guys think that is, because I have no idea. But so she gets through that interview, and then she decides, to take the case and whatnot. And then, yeah, we see at the end of the episode, the news. She turns on the news, and he's broken out of prison, and she's like, "Geez, of course." So she's in for some more antics by the end of the episode. But for me, definitely the highlight of this episode was the family dinner. I absolutely love that. Like you said, Mark Lynn-Baker did a phenomenal job as the dad. Standout character from this episode for sure. I thought it was fun. I thought it was light. I liked it. I liked the setup for where we're going in the series. It's going to be a lot of fun. I look forward to next week's episode. And if you are having a show that's coming on a weekly basis like this, it's a good thing to want to see more of the television show, because there's been a few that have come out on Disney as of late where I watch an episode and I'm like, oh, okay, and I'm not excited for the next episode. But this one, I am excited for the next episode. Very much looking forward to it. And if I was going to give this one a rating, I'm going to go, Matt gave it an 8 out of 10. I'm going to say a 7 out of 10. I'm going to give it a solid B as well. I thought it was really good. And it was a lot of fun, but there's, I don't know.
What brings you to that 7?
I'm trying to think of what brought it down for me a little bit. And for me, like you said, Titania kind of dropped out of the episode, so we didn't see any more of Titania. I know we're going to get it later on as well. For me, I can kind of see how they started to edit these two, because originally, like I mentioned on the Sunday show, they were going to have She-Hulk's origin story in episode 8 of the series. So really, this episode was probably going to be episode 1 of She-Hulk originally. So we could kind of see where they were going with that. I don't know. It's like it wasn't like, man, this is the most fantastic episode I've ever seen. That's something that's going to give me like a 10 out of 10. It's a lighthearted sitcom, and I think that, a 7 out of 10 is a perfectly good score for a sitcom in itself. It's lighthearted, but it doesn't bring that extra element in. And I've talked about this before, that makes you really change your perception, makes you feel something deeper. I don't have this with this show, and I'm fine with that. I'm here for the ride, and it's perfectly fine the way that it is. And we have lots of other Marvel shows. We have lots of other Marvel material that does hit me a lot harder when it comes to that kind of stuff. I mean, if you look at, Captain America, the Winter Soldier, that is my absolute favorite of the Marvel films. And it just hits me on all those different levels. It's a very serious spy movie that I very much enjoy. That's my 10 out of 10. That's kind of how I rate and I view the rest of these Marvel shows and films like that. I will rate them off of that. That's my 10 out of 10. So is it on the level of Captain America Winter Soldier? No. Is it still a good time? Absolutely. I absolutely love this show. I can't wait to see the next one. So that's
So
kind of
8 out of 10 from me, and a scathing 7 out of 10 from Christopher Matthews. So
definitely not a 1 out of 10, that's for sure. So still awesome. Still great.
Yeah.
And there's I want to see more action too. I want to see She-Hulk in action. I really want to see Daredevil. That episode will probably give me a 10 out of 10, just to be honest, because I cannot wait for Daredevil. What do you guys think? I cannot wait for Daredevil. Daredevil was my favorite Netflix show. Charlie Cox is amazing at Matt Murdock. And Matt, another Matt, so gotta enjoy that as well. So I can't wait to see them. I can't wait to see how they incorporate Daredevil into Daredevil into the MCU. So I'm very much looking forward to stuff. So I just want to get us going with that stuff. So it'll be a lot of fun.
all right. Well, so we're going to move into a different portion of the show here. We're going to go a little bit more into some interesting information that we have found while we've researched out the episodes, the worlds, the genres, the everything about this content that we're bringing to you. So I'm going to cover real life superheroes, and some out there might know that this is actually a thing. You can go look it up right now. In fact, Chris, are you able to put the web link there, or we'll have it posted in the comments below?
So we'll have it in our description of the show. So,
description below, yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay.
you can access all the links that Matt's going to mention in the description of the show once we post this up for you guys, the viewing audience. So
yeah. So go check out an individual named Phoenix Jones. And this is a moniker, of course. His real name is Ben Fodder. Sorry, Ben, if you're watching this and I mispronounced.
Cannon fodder.
I get it all the time.
He's gonna come beat you up, dude. He's a trained MMA fighter, dude.
What?
He's a trained MMA fighter. He's gonna come and find you and
yeah. Spoiler alert: he's a trained MMA fighter. Yeah. Phoenix Jones operated as a superhero on the streets of Seattle. Basically, kind of eyewitness reports and people spotting him, posting on social media and stuff, put the time frame about January of 2011 to June 2020 is the last he was spotted as Phoenix Jones. He's had other stuff going on after 2020, but I want to focus mainly on his career as a superhero, because this guy, like Chris mentioned, trained MMA fighter. He worked as both an amateur and a professional in the ring. with several wins and losses. I'll say amateur, he was 15-2 for wins to losses.
Not
And
bad.
as a pro, he was 7-3. So no slouch at all.
No.
Um, you got the picture of him up there, and this guy was trained and as far as fighting people, knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
But he also wore a suit, of course, you can see that included a bulletproof vest, stab plating there and on his arms. He had a stun baton that he carried around, along with pepper spray, tear gas, handcuffs, and a first aid kit. And basically, what he would do is he would roam the streets of Seattle and look for crime in progress. He stopped carjackings, a bus jacking,
Wow.
multiple DUIs, people just needing to get home. There's footage of him literally just helping people that were inebriated or
Mm.
something just get back to their friends or something along those lines. Breaking up verbal arguments all the time. So he'd hang outside bars and clubs, kind of looking for this stuff to happen. But there is a legal cost to all of this, which is why we're going into it in conjunction with She-Hulk here, because just like your average citizen, somebody sporting a superhero costume on the streets is not above the law at all. And so when it comes to personal assault charges, unfortunately, Phoenix Jones has been brought up on those
Oh.
because of his use of pepper spray and because of some of the altercations that he's been in. Basically, it comes down to like a he said, she said in some of these encounters where he has said he's breaking up a fight by using these weapons or
Huh.
fighting people in order to get them to stop harassing somebody else or stop them stealing a car or something along those lines. And those people have said, nope, you attacked me. And when the police show up, they've got to take him into custody, or they've had to take him into custody a
Crazy.
couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, people started reporting that he was out and about in January of 2011.
Mm-hmm.
By October, he had been arrested, and as part of the hearing, he had to remove his mask in court. I mean, they took him to jail in costume,
He was in
and then
costume
they
the whole
brought him.
time. Like he didn't take it off
Yeah,
when he was in
he was in
jail.
costume the entire time
Wow.
while handcuffed. And I don't know if they, as far as processing goes, if they
Yeah.
took
Right.
a mug shot with him,
Yeah.
but I imagine they would have to remove the mask for that as well.
Yeah. Right.
But he did have to reveal himself to the world as Ben fodder at that point in that hearing. And then after he went back out, he did an interview with the press and took off his mask to them as well. So after at that point, just like you see in so many superhero movies, he inspired a following. In fact, several other people started dressing up in gear and joining him on the streets, and
Right.
eventually he formed a an alliance, a league of real life superheroes that they called the Rain City Superhero Movement. And this included other superheroes like Thorn, Buster Doe,
Hmm.
Green Reaper, the Mantis, No Name, Catastrophe, Thunder 88, and Penelope. So you can see him walking along the streets there
Penelope.
with some of these other superheroes. Yeah, and
That's
they would
awesome.
show up at festivals as well.
Mm-hmm.
He became pretty famous, and the link that you'll find in the description actually includes an ESPN documentary on this guy. It's very
Nice.
well done, and it's short. It's 10 minutes in length, but it kind of chronicles why he got into this and what experiences he had throughout his career as a superhero. Includes personal interviews with him, the police. It's very well done. So check it out. But like I said, it is possible to indulge in this lifestyle
Yeah.
as a street walking superhero, if you will, but it does come with a cost. So if
Yeah.
I've inspired you to try it out, just realize that Yeah, you could be arrested like anybody else.
So my question to you, Matt, is what kind of jail time or what kind of sentencings did this guy get from these assault charges
Right.
and whatnot? Like, did they let him
Well,
out right
like
away, or were they lenient on them? Or did he have to serve some serious jail time? What was that like?
never had to serve serious jail time because of these superhero arrests.
Wow,
It basically
nice.
came down to, well, I mean, the police can't keep him in custody if nobody's going to be pressing charges.
True.
And then it's up to the state, of course, whether or not they want to pursue anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it never happened. Nobody pressed charges against him. It had people that basically had him arrested because they said that he assaulted them or started a fight or something along those lines. And
Right.
he would always go peacefully because one of his
Mm-hmm.
things is whenever an altercation would start, one of his first moves is call the police, get them
Perfect.
coming. And a large part of what he would do to intervene is just track somebody or basically stop them from fleeing the
Yeah.
police. And this happened with a couple of carjackings and stuff. Basically, he like got in the person's way or
Mm-hmm.
followed them, or with the other superheroes, they just kind of kept going and led the police to the
Mm-hmm.
assailant or the thief or whoever it was. So, but when the police would arrive, that person sometimes would say, "No, it's these other people that are harassing me." And of course, they have to figure out what to do in those cases. Sometimes he got arrested.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you want to decide to do something like this, definitely take. There's going to be consequences to this. I remember hearing a story, an anecdotal story from is Phoenix Jones, right? Where
It's
he,
Phoenix Jones.
yeah, when he first went out, he actually got shot, and like he had the armor on and everything, but guess what? He broke a bunch of his ribs and everything, and ended up going in an alley and just passing out one of the first times he was out on patrol. So it's very dangerous for one, and if at all possible, get law enforcement involved, and that's what they're there for. They're there to handle those type of situations. But it's really cool that this guy is willing to do this and serve his community in some way. And like you said, like calling the cops first, making sure that you stay within the law is probably the best thing for you. So
Yeah.
be a good citizen, call these kind of things in, step up when you need to. If you're in a situation, whenever something is wrong, not a problem to step in and try to do the right thing for people around you and help out. So
Well,
good stuff.
I will add a disclaimer to that, and in the documentary you'll see the police discouraged this type of
Yeah.
activity completely. They
Yeah.
If an altercation is there, they want people to stay out of it. Call the police, of course, but
Mm-hmm.
they do not encourage chasing down car thieves or criminals and just basically call them and let them do their job.
Yeah.
Part of Phoenix's reasoning for doing what he does is because, like most superheroes, he finds law enforcement to not necessarily be as responsive as
True.
he feels is necessary. So he's taken the law into his own hands a couple of times.
Yep. Such is the life of a vigilante.
Yeah, yeah. Whatever he's doing, it takes a lot of courage just to walk around in costume. But
Right?
then, yeah, also to get stabbed and shot in costume and then go back out takes quite a
For
bit of
sure.
gall and bravery and courage. So,
Right? And to
yeah.
want to do that time and time again, hats off to you, man. That's awesome. Again, like the police frown upon that, like we see in the movies. But I can't fault him for wanting to stand up and protect the people around him. So good on you,
Yeah.
bro. So all right, shall we
But what
move to
did
the
you
next
got for
section?
us, Chris? What did you look into this week?
Yeah, so I wanted to look into some of the back history on She-Hulk in the comic books and whatnot. So I got some stuff about that. And I've also got a little bit of the criticism that we're seeing. So look forward to that. So I got like two little segments here. So
Hmm.
let's go into some of the history. Let's go into She-Hulk history if we can.
All right.
So She-Hulk first appeared in Savage She-Hulk. Like they kind of mentioned like the savage look in the first episode. Remember, number one that premiered in February 1980, and it was actually created by Stan Lee and John
Hmm.
Buscema. I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name. Is it Buscema? I'm pretty sure it's probably Buscema. Again, We apologize for our terrible names, like how we pronounce you guys' names. We got to work on that. But She-Hulk. This was a pretty interesting anecdote. She-Hulk was actually the last character that Stan Lee created for Marvel before he left Marvel and decided to produce his own company. So the very last one created by Stan Lee was She-Hulk. And the reason why they wanted to create She-Hulk in 1980 was actually because they wanted to retain the rights to this character. So, in a little history behind this, too, there was a show called The $6 Million Man. And on that show, they actually premiered the Hulk on that show. And then he eventually got his own spin-off back in the day in the 70s. So they came out
Lou
with
Ferrigno.
Yes, Lou Ferrigno played that character. I hope that
No
he has
CGI needed.
No. And we could get into that later episodes about how he feels about the CGI and whether they should just have somebody paint it up. But then they came out with another show called Bionic Woman, which was basically the counterpart to $6 Million Man. And so the Marvel was very afraid that they were going to premiere a female version of Hulk on the Bionic Woman. And so before they did that, they made sure that they geared up and produced them in the comic books because they wanted to own the rights to this character. So the reason why we have She-Hulk today is because of $6 Million Man and Bionic Woman.
Because of a legal problem.
Yeah, she's an attorney. This stuff all comes back full circle, right? So now that we've seen in this episode, in episode 2 and episode 1, we've seen that the character of Jennifer Walters is breaking the fourth wall, right? So we've seen that a couple of times. We've seen that with Deadpool in Marvel as well. He likes to do that as well. But there definitely is precedence for this in the comic books. So the second solo run of She-Hulk was called The Sensational She-Hulk. It premiered in 1989. It was written by John Byrne, and he decided to have the character gain awareness that she was actually a comic book character. So she'd be breaking the fourth wall all the time. She'd even jump out of the comic book through the printed advertisements to go get the villain. So this is what I was saying would be really cool. Wouldn't it be awesome if we had more advertisements in She-Hulk to where like She-Hulk would get out of the show and then kind of like battle through the advertising? I thought that would be an awesome idea for them to do. So we were talking about that a little bit earlier in the episode. I thought, wow, that'd be awesome if they could incorporate something like that they did in the comic books as well. So there's definitely precedence for her to be breaking the fourth wall. It's part of this character. Again, this is a comedy. It's supposed to be a lot more lighthearted than the other entries into the Marvel universe, so it plays along with that theme. So she's been doing this for quite a while, since 1989 in the comic book. So it's true to form for She-Hulk to be breaking the fourth wall. And so that's the short information. She's had another comic book solo in the 2000s as well. And she's been a part of the Avengers and other groups like that as well in the comic books. But now I want to kind of gear us towards what the current situation that we're seeing with the last couple of episodes, what we're seeing. And I saw an article about this the other day about these review bombings on IMDb. So I wanted to talk about that. And there's been a ton.
Yeah.
There's been a ton. And both me and Matt really do enjoy this show. Like we reviewed today's episode. He gave it an 8 out of 10. I gave it a 7 out of 10. So we do enjoy this show. And I think there's a lot of fans out there that are enjoying this show. But what we're seeing on IMDb is there is a ton of 1-star reviews for some reason. And currently, I looked it up this morning. It's around 24.4%. 35. Sorry. There's 35.4% 1-star reviews for She-Hulk right now as it stands. And for contrast, the 24.4%, that's 10-star reviews. So there's a lot of 10-star reviews, and there's a ton of 1-star reviews. And consecutively, you can see those percentages go from high to low as you go through the star system. 4 stars, 3 stars, 2 stars, 1 stars. And for context on this, we're seeing a ton of this. And it's the most that we've seen with one of the Marvel shows so far. So for context, guys, WandaVision had about 2.2% 1-star reviews for that show. And bear in mind, these shows have been on the air. We've seen the entire season, so this might change as we go along. But this is just what we're seeing with these couple of episodes with She-Hulk so far. Falcon and the Winter Soldier had 2.9%. Loki had 1.5% one-star reviews. What If had 2.1%. Hawkeye had 1.5%. Moon Knight had a little bit more. It was 4.1%. And then Miss Marvel had a whopping 18.9% one-star reviews. And so why are we seeing, and again, right now, where we're sitting with She-Hulk, it has the most out of all of them. It has 35.4% one-star reviews on IMDb. And there's a lot of different things that are out there about why this might be happening. One of a couple of things that I found was there's a lot of criticism to the CGI in the show. So a lot of people are upset with how it looks. And for me, I thought I would have more of a problem. You know, I think that they did go back and they fixed a bunch of it as well. Because if you look at the old YouTube trailers for She-Hulk, it actually looks a little bit rougher than what we're seeing in the show. And for me, I had no problem. Even with the first episode, when there was a ton of CGI with Hulk and She-Hulk, I had no problem with it. I thought it was just fine. It worked just fine for me. It was not a criticism for me. What about you, Matt?
So that is something that has been distracting for me. I will say,
Okay.
especially with this episode,
Mm-hmm.
since they had the CGI Hulk breaking the fourth wall, looking directly at the camera, I felt like there's much more opportunity for that uncanny valley sort of look with the eyes and all
Okay.
that. And it did distract me. And I thought, okay, the CGI is just not as good as what we've seen in movies and that sort of stuff. And it's interesting that they're even having her in her Hulk form for I don't know what reason. Basically, her boss just insisted on it, like she's some kind of, superhero mascot to have around,
That's
which I
basically
think
it. Yeah.
speaks.
That's what they're
Yeah,
trying to do.
I think it speaks to one of the themes of the show is that, she's trumpeted around for her aesthetic
Mm-hmm.
more
Yep.
than, her intelligence as a lawyer. So I think that's part of what they're going for, but
Mm-hmm.
having it be an all CGI character that does that is a little off-putting. Now, it's definitely not something that
Yeah.
distracted me so much that I would rate this thing as like a 1 star out of 5 or 10 review.
Mm-hmm.
I rarely read reviews because I'm worried about spoilers or just somebody else's opinion sort of not letting me think whatever my own opinion would be after seeing the material. I'll read them maybe afterwards, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand a 1 star review out of this. I mean, there's quality content. It's funny in parts, and if you're watching a show called She-Hulk, my guess is that you're into comics and
Mm-hmm.
characters from those comics, and you know already that that stuff can be pretty silly.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
fictional universe here, people, with a giant green woman. I mean, come on.
Yeah. It's
What's
going to be a little
what's going to be
silly.
1 star? Like,
Yeah. And for me, it's like, this show is being billed as a comedy, so like the visual effects, I don't really care as much if they're super duper polished or whatnot. It for me, it's not taking me out of the thing. And for one reason is, these visual effects artists, they are being asked to do the impossible right now, guys. Like, there are so many shows coming out, Star Wars, with Marvel, with all this stuff, and really, there's only a finite amount of artists out there to do these projects. And I've heard a lot of these visual effects artists are working to the grind, long hours trying to get this stuff out there and produce all this content. And this is one of the reasons why we're seeing why people are comparing stuff from way back in the days. If you look at Jurassic Park and you look at the stuff from now, it's like some of that visual effects, some of those CGI dinosaurs actually look better than some of the stuff that we're seeing today. And one of the reasons is it's not because our technology is getting worse and worse. It's just because we don't have the manpower available at this moment in time to produce this stuff at the highest quality that we need to have better looking stuff. So we only during Jurassic Park, they had all their people concentrating on that. There weren't any other real projects out there that they had to contend with or these artists had to work on. Now they're being stretched very, very thin. So I really do think that they're doing the best job that they can right now. And I absolutely give my hats off to the work that they're doing right now and what they're able to produce with so much content out there, so much stuff that these artists are having to be involved in and to develop as well. So for me, I can put that aside and say, okay, it's not the best CGI. Of course. But I'm still enjoying it. I think it looks really good still, and I can get over that fact, especially with She-Hulk. That's supposed to be a lighter-hearted show. So it's not much of a problem for me, but I can see why it's a problem for other people. Does it warrant a 1-star review? I don't think so. Maybe it detracts a little bit, but definitely not warranting of a 1-star review. So that's the criticisms that some people have with that one. The other criticism that I saw with the show is about the adult humor. It can be problematic for families and younger audiences. We kind of went over this last week, and I watched this show with my daughter again this week, and her review, 10 out of 10 for this episode of She-Hulk. Her review last time, also a 10 out of 10, so basically a perfect show for my daughter. But there are some elements in there that could be problematic for families and whatnot. But I think, talking to your kids and making sure you talk with these problematic situations, it's okay. I didn't think there was too much with this episode that I had a problem with. Did you have anything? No, I didn't either.
I mean, I just don't think Amelia hasn't watched this with me because she's just not interested. But
and for me, the stinger from last week was with Steve Rogers being a virgin and whatnot. I didn't show that to my daughter, so and this is what I've suggested last week too, which was watch the show first, see if it's okay, and then if you feel comfortable, let your kid watch it as well.
Right,
and that's always a good thing to do with any of these shows. So,
well, and I always think like my parents watched Jurassic Park before they allowed me to go to the theater with them, and they were okay with me watching a man being bit off of a toilet by a giant Tyrannosaurus Rex.
I think of the things that we saw as kids. My grandma used to watch like scary movies with me. I saw Child's Play as a little kid, and all these other like Pet Cemetery as well.
No, I couldn't have seen that one, but
so I grew up watching this stuff, and I turned out relatively okay. Like you might think differently, guys, but I think it's okay. As long as you're there to explain things and to be there, and it's not a big deal. It's not as big of a deal as you might think it is,
You obviously didn't have a My Buddy growing up, because I think Child's Play would have sent me out of my skin.
I didn't. I didn't have a My Buddy. You're right. I didn't. So that's another thing that people
would have never been able to sleep again.
Right? So that's another problem people have with it. Once again, does it warrant a 1-star review of this show? I don't think so, but everybody has their opinion. The last thing
it's a superhero show.
Yeah.
What are people so upset about?
These are the things that I found. The last thing, and this is a thing that is continuing to go on with Marvel, with Lucasfilm, and everything else. People keep talking about this woke culture being woven into these stories as well. So since the show explores, the differences between men and women, the struggles women face, and how it affects being the Hulk, people are considering this a woke narrative, and this is the problem that I see with this is a lot of people are reading about this and not actually watching the show, and then leaving 1-star reviews about this, and so that is actually happening. And it's just like, and guys out there, if you are a fan of these things, or if you don't like something about the show, that is absolutely fine. You can have your opinion. It's totally cool. But watch the show and give it an honest review. If you're giving a review for something you haven't seen, that's disingenuous. That's not offering the audience anything, concrete that they need to have in order to watch these shows. And if you actually have a good criticism about the show, you need to be watching it and then leaving a review. You shouldn't be leaving a review if you haven't actually watched this show. And for me, when it comes to this idea of woke culture or whatnot, understand, and I said this last week, understanding a different point of view is no big deal. There is nothing in this show or last week's show that has been detracting towards males or men or anything like that. If you can raise people up without detracting others, and this show is not viewing people in a negative light. It's just showing the struggles that certain people have in life, and I don't think that that's a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing to bring up these subjects in shows because they're relevant to today's culture as well. So what do you think, Matt?
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's barely doing any of that.
It's barely,
it's mostly about a comic, and I don't see a ton of like the woke woke culture
I know it's so hard to say too.
I know in these episodes. Like there's
Yeah,
definitely more material out there, movies, TV shows that cover that in depth
yeah,
and go much further than She-Hulk. It's just Marvel's
right.
integration
Yeah,
of these comic book characters to modern society. Like
absolutely.
yeah.
And you have to cover, how Jennifer Walters deals with anger. I mean, that's a basic part about being a Hulk. You have to cover this kind of stuff. It's a comic book show, guys. Don't try to relate this to our current political situation or anything like that. Just sit down, enjoy the show for what it is. If you have a problem with something that you see outside of the show, then I don't think that it warrants giving this show a bad review. Take the show for what it is, review it based off of what the show is instead of what we're seeing in our political culture in America. So that's really all I have to say about it. So,
All
but for me
right.
and Matt, we definitely did enjoy it. It is definitely not a 1 star from us. So,
No, not at all.
we hope not at all, and we hope that you guys, if you guys can comment below and tell us what you thought about episode 2. Tell us what you thought about episode 1. See how it's going. If you did genuinely think that this is a 1-star show, give us your feedback, and we'll be able to discuss that later on. And give us your ideas on what you want to see with this show, and just whatever you want to say about it. Let us know, and we'll be able to bring that up on further episodes of She-Hulk. So that's going to bring us to the conclusion of our review of She-Hulk. You got anything else to say before we depart?
No, I hope you enjoyed the information. I hope you
Yeah,
enjoyed the show. And if you
yeah,
don't, let us know, like Chris said. But
yeah.
yeah, that's all I've got for this one.
Positive reviews, negative reviews, whatever you want to say to us. Like, Chris, you're crazy. You're a goofy looking guy. Go for it. You can say whatever you want
Yeah.
about us. So leave your comments, and as always, I brought this up in the beginning, and I'm going to be bringing this up from now on. If you can, make sure that you subscribe to our channel and set up notifications, like this video. It really does help us out, guys. It really does help out the show. And the more subscribers we have, the more that we can do for you guys, the more that we can present to you. We're working really hard to present some really good content, some good ideas, some good stories, and some good reviews on
And let
all the
us
stuff that we're
know
seeing.
how we can make the show better, what you'd rather see,
Absolutely.
what you don't want to see anymore. We're
Mm-hmm.
open to all suggestions. So,
All suggestions. Yeah, and we definitely want to listen to you. We want to build this community up. So subscribe today. Matt, if you can point up above you, subscribe, hit that subscribe button below, and get us up there so that we can start to present even more great content for you. So that's going to do it for us today here on our review for She-Hulk. We hope you had a fun and exciting time with us here with Matt and Chris on Fatherly Fandom. And from our families to yours, adios,
have a good one.
amigos. Yeah, have a good one.